Well, now we know O.J. will be a free man. O.J. Simpson will be released from prison.
Unanimous decision by the parole board. They say he has served enough time, 9 years in prison for this kidnapping case. And it was an interesting hearing, to be sure. The question, how will O.J. Simpson be received back into society? How should he be received back into society?
Well, those are two
will he
different
try to
questions.
make money? Will the Goldmans go after the money? There are a million questions. And my go-to person for all of this is a man who helped O.J. Simpson get off in the murder case and one of the great legal minds of my time, Harvard law professor, Alan Dershowitz, and he joins us right now. Alan, welcome to TMZ Live.
Well, thank you. This is too little too late. He should never have gotten 33 years. He should have gotten 3 years and should have been hung 1. But the 900-pound gorilla in the room was always the murder case in California. And no matter how many times the parole board and the sentencing judge say they didn't take into account the murders, the double murder in California, how can anybody believe them? I mean, the vast majority of Americans thought he did it. And that obviously is true in Nevada as well as other places. And nobody else could explain how a 33-year-old sentence, a 33-year sentence would be imposed on somebody for a kind of friendly encounter which went bad when all the victims accepted his apology.
You know, Alan, what really struck me, I'm just interested in your take on this. What really struck me, and I'm sure we probably disagree on this, but I think that O.J. Simpson never got real justice, that in the murder case, you know, from my vantage point, I've never seen a guiltier man, but it seems to me that the jury ruled against the LAPD and their misdeeds. And in the kidnapping case, they didn't really rule on the merits of the kidnapping case. The judge sentenced him based on the murder case. So to me, it's never been justice.
Well, you only get justice ultimately in heaven or hell. We have imperfect justice in this world, and we have a system that says better 10 guilty go free than 1 and wrongly fined, and we assign juries to make that determination. Look, we didn't win the case. The prosecutors blew it in every possible way. First, they picked the location of the trial, which meant there was going to be a predominantly black jury. They could have had it in an area where it would have been a predominantly white jury. Marsha Clark decided she wanted black women on the jury. They would be sympathetic to the victim. It backfired. All of those were stupid, amateur, inexperienced blunders by prosecutors, and we didn't win the case. They lost it.
Well, that's hard to argue that. What do you think about how O.J. Simpson should be received back into society? Do you think this is like an Etch-a-Sketch now, just a clean slate?
Oh, absolutely not. People don't forget. My advice to O.J., if he's listening, stay out of the public view. Do what Klaus von Bülow did when I helped him get acquitted back in the 80s. I said to him, disappear. The public doesn't want to see your face. In O.J.'s case, the public wants to see his face, but they want to see it in an exploitive way. And he'd be better off going back with his family, never appearing on television, never signing footballs, never writing a book. But I doubt he'll follow that advice.
Yeah, as I say, that's not that's not O.J. Simpson's character. And Alan, I don't know how much you saw of the hearing, but it was clear that his ego is fully intact. He was pretty defiant.
Yeah, in fact, I was worried when I saw part of the hearing that he might have, pissed off some of the professionals who were on the parole board. But they obviously applied what they regarded as the right criteria, and they came to the right result.
Yeah, that flash of anger he had when he said he didn't, it was his property, that must have really made you sit up in your chair.
Well, that plus his kind of giggling when he talked about his infidelities. There were a few things. If I had been his lawyer, I would have coached him very differently. But he's O.J., and he's not particularly coachable. And that's why we didn't put him on the witness stand. You saw what a terrible witness he would have made had we put him on the witness stand. There were some lawyers who wanted to put him on the witness stand, and I said, absolutely not. We have to put the L.A. police on trial, which is what we did.
Hey, Alan, final thing. And look, this is kind of a tough one to answer, but I think you have an opinion about it. O.J. Simpson will live the rest of his life, presumably, as a free man, or at least in the foreseeable future. What are the chances O.J. Simpson will stay out of trouble, based on everything you know?
I think now, knowing what he's been through, it would require a degree of insanity on his part to get in trouble again. But remember, he immediately after he was acquitted, he got into a traffic situation in Florida. I think he learned his lesson. I saw a slightly calmer, more self-reflective man today, and My hope is that he will stay out of trouble, but we can make predictions. I can't imagine that he would do anything really, really serious. But remember, he's under parole for the next at least 5 years, and he can't even do anything minor. He can't do anything. He has to live the life as if somebody is watching him 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he is in the same position we've seen people like Lindsay Lohan, where you've
It's a
got to
revolving door.
Right. So we will see.
Okay, Alan, thank you. Listen, cannot thank you enough for the time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Make sure to subscribe to TMZ Live to keep up to date on the latest entertainment news.
And if you want to keep watching, click on one of these videos right now.